How you doing, Roman? It's
Dude, I'm psyched.
been a long, long time.
It's been about 4 years, 5 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
about that. And we're doing this under Tech Out Loud before. What was it called before that we did? I don't remember.
It was Mac Core. Was it
Matt
Mac
Core, that's
Core?
right. That was a good name.
Like it's a solid name.
Yeah, and then Mac Ops we were going to do for a little while.
Mac Ops was also cool.
Yeah, I think Tech Out Loud will work all right.
Like
Um,
TOL, like once it's established,
yeah.
right? There's like what is it, Tech Fest lunch and dinner and all those guys. They all have these abbreviations, and I think TOL, bro, like it's it's butter.
Rolls off your tongue, yeah, and I have a
Yep.
nice logo for it too, so we'll be able to put that up there. Um, uh, also, well, how are you doing? You're in Germany, right?
I'm in Germany still. Not, I didn't quite make it to the US yet, but I'm focusing on 3 years. I have 2 more years of military service right now.
Hmm.
After that, I'm going to do some training, just business training in Germany, and then I'm going to try to move and work in the US for 5 years or so.
Wow, what part? What part of the
Uh,
U.S.?
well, either Virginia in that area
Hmm.
or California with my two cousins. They live in San Diego.
That's a big difference, Virginia or California.
It's it's both at the coast,
Yeah.
right? Let's
Uh-huh. That's
let's
true.
sum up the similarities, right?
Right. Sure. There's a little common ground, coast to coast. You have an ocean each side. That's true.
East Coast people have more character because they have to deal with miserable weather, like we have to, right? That's what they say. They have more
Yeah,
character.
that's true. And I can tell you, California and Virginia, you're going to find a lot more. Well, see, yeah, I guess, no, they're going to be characters both coasts, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, that'll be neat to have you down here, man. Do a little visiting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to plan on flying to the East Coast. My stepdad lives in Virginia, so I think I'd set up home base right there, and then New Jersey. Here I come.
That's cool.
I have friends in New York, like in Brooklyn, so that trip would be great.
Get some deli.
There you go.
So the reason I wanted to start this podcast or this video cast up again is because so much has changed in the landscape as far as tech goes, and actually personally, I just sold um, yesterday my MacBook Pro 15 inch. So it's a refurbished mid 2015 MacBook Pro, right? So every time I bought a MacBook Pro in the past, it was because that was going to be my main driver. So I needed to have lots of power in there. I was going to do video editing. I'm a photographer, so photography, edit that. Um, and so that's what I've been doing since I don't know how long, 2006 when the first MacBook came out. I think that was it, or 2003. Um, so here's the thing though. I have an iMac, right? 27-inch iMac, mid 2000 or late 2012, and it has 32 gigs of RAM, 3.4 gigahertz processor. It's 27 inch. It does all the work that I need it to do. So when I bought this, after I bought this MacBook Pro, which I still have it here, this behemoth that covers my head, um, I got it, and I quickly realized because I went from a 13 inch to this 15 inch, and once I got it, I quickly realized I don't need that anymore. I don't need the size, I don't need the weight, and I don't need the power for it because it's just a secondary computer. So I thought, well, let me go to the new MacBook, the 12-inch MacBook with the Retina display. And this was the interesting thing. When I think of the new MacBook as a replacement for my existing laptop, my 15 inch, I think, oh man, it's almost the same money, and it's not as much power. It's not as much, not as many peripherals and everything. And so I had a really hard time justifying that price. Then I started thinking about it as an iPad replacement. Do you have an iPad?
I do not have one anymore. I used to have one.
Okay, what
Back
did you use it for?
Yeah, there you go. I mean, not a lot of writing. It's a consumption tool, you know.
It's a consumption tool, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's a consumption tool. So with that in mind, I thought, well, as a replacement for an iPad Air, and Air 2, it's a great replacement because it's same size screen, same or better resolution. It has a keyboard built in. It has OS X. I can do everything that I can do on an iPad with.
Way more.
Way more with the same portability as an iPad, which is
Even if you're
ridiculous.
just on the couch, like, the iPad is always like the thing in the kitchen, the thing in the couch, grab it real quick, pass it to someone showing photos, browse the internet, watch movies, all those
Exactly.
things. Have it connected to your home, maybe. That's like, I think, as far as it will go to most households. Having the MacBook, the new one, I think it is the better tool for doing those things, because you can also lie on your couch and do way more with it just because of the whole operating system OS 10
I
on it.
agree. And the only reason that I'm keeping my iPad Air 2, which I still want to sell it, but the only reason I'm keeping it is because when I do appointments with my clients, I want to show off my photography, and it's really great to be able to hand them over an iPad and say, "Here you go, check it out," and that's a really nice tool. But now here's the other thing that got me. So I sold my MacBook Pro. The money's getting transferred. Once that's done, I'm going to send it out next week. And so I was looking for deals online. So right now, Apple has refurbished MacBooks online. You can buy them for about $240 off, which is not a bad deal. And Apple refurb, I buy Apple refurb all the time. They're great machines. Everything's perfect. But there's this place, I don't know if you've ever heard of it in New York. It's called B&H Audio and Video.
Never heard of it.
They're pretty big here on the East Coast. Well, for President's Day weekend, they're selling brand new MacBooks, not refurbished, for $300 to $350 off.
Wow.
I said that is absolutely the price point that I need.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go for that. The sale holds until Monday, so I think I'm going to go for that. And as a secondary machine, I mean, I've been doing a lot of research and listening to people, and I'm going to go for the higher end one, the 1.3 gigahertz with 512 gigs gig SSD. And the reason I want to do that is, have you looked at any reviews online of the MacBook?
Yeah, lots. Well,
That-
not recently, but like when it came out, like a week after it came out, I looked at everything there was.
Okay. Well, recently, if you look on there, for some reason, so the flash memory in MacBook is PCIe now, right? So it's a lot faster. So on all the MacBooks, you get like 400 read and 700 write, something like that. But if you have two brand new MacBooks side by side, and one of them has a 256 gig SSD, and the other one has a 512 SSD, that 512 SSD will have, for whatever reason, the RAM in there has, or no, the hard drive itself is faster read and write speeds. Even, I don't know why, but with the bigger hard drive space, it goes along with faster read and write speeds. So for whatever reason, it gets a lot faster. So it's more like 500 and 600 read and 800 and 900 write. So I'm gonna go for the bigger one. But anyway, so that's what I want to go for. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to talk about is with the MacBook is the peripherals. So again, if you're buying this as a daily driver, it doesn't have enough peripherals. It has one USB C. You can do a lot with it, but it's not meant to replace a MacBook Pro. It's just not. It's meant to be a secondary or a replacement for an iPad. But if you look at it as face to face against the MacBook Pro, it's just not good enough. So
it's actually meant to be a prototype that you can buy. I think that's always what they're doing. They're introducing new stuff.
Yep.
I'm not saying they're throwing something to the wall, seeing what sticks, but it is a prototype you can buy. I mean, we're going to see this. What I think about the MacBook, I was contemplating on buying one, even not really, well, replacing my MacBook Pro actually, because I'm just like, yeah, what am I doing with it? Not a lot.
Right.
I have the i7 MacBook Pro 13-inch.
Nice.
And the fans, they just kick in for no reason.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be your workstation, no problem, right? If it's on your desk. But if you're lugging it around, the battery drop is significant from the i7. It just runs way more. It just runs a little hotter than the i5.
And for what?
And for what? It's supposed to be my portable machine.
Right.
So, but I do think the MacBook, the 12-inch, the new one, is going to set a precedent or like a framework for our next generation of MacBook Pros.
Mm.
We will see. I, I'm betting on it. There's going to be a silver one. There's going to be like a dark gray, space gray one. There might even be a gold one. I'm not sure. It doesn't look very professional.
I don't really care.
Yeah,
the gold is so hideous. I never understood that.
But like with all the changes they made with this new technology, it's Force Touch, butterfly keyboard, that's all going to be integrated, is already integrated into the new MacBook Pros. So I think there's a lot of new technology to be had with this thing. And I think they're also going to, it might even reach the MacBook Air line. Like, what are they going to do? It's their new lightweight typing machine, right?
Yeah.
As an author, like if you're writing a book, it's perfect. It's got a beautiful screen. It's not too big. It's fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How are they going to be marketing the MacBook Air with this thing?
Well, there's a couple of things there. First of all, the hardest part about buying this MacBook right now, even with the great price, is waiting for that second gen. Because that second gen, even if it doesn't come out with another USB C, which everybody thinks it will, I don't think it will. I think they're going to stay with a one-port system because there's a philosophy behind the MacBook of using just cloud computing. And I think that's fine because that's what it's meant for. However, I know that they're going to get Skylake processors, and that is going to be a nice kick in the pants for the GPU and a little bit on the CPU side, and it's going to be a more robust machine. That being said, a 1.3 gigahertz with a turbo to 2.9 plus a 512 SSD in the package that it is, it's fine for now, especially for that price point. So, but that it's still hard because you don't want to buy when technology is right around the corner. Go ahead.
Especially for the tests that you're planning on doing with this thing. You're not going to be gaming, right? Like
No,
casual
gamer,
things,
no.
obviously, like light gaming, blah blah, casual stuff is possible with this thing. But how much? Why would you need more performance for what?
Right.
Like HD video streams fine on like older machines that don't even have SSD. Like
right.
Obviously, right?
No. Absolutely.
You're going to need a bit of performance to be pushing all those pixels, right?
Absolutely. And again, going back, we were talking about the peripherals before. I have something. This is a new package. It just arrived today. I did a lot of research on Amazon. Are you an Amazon guy?
Obviously.
I love Amazon. And what I bought was this. You can see that there. It's the Satechi, right?
Okay.
And what it is I don't know if you can see the little graphic on the back there. It sits on the side of a MacBook Pro or MacBook, new MacBook.
Oh, that actually doesn't look as bad as I thought it would.
Let me tell you something. They made one first, and what it had was 3 USB, micro SD slot card reader, and an SD card slot reader. And I thought, well, that's really nice. However, the problem is they didn't have a throughput for USB-C power, and everybody complained about it on Amazon and otherwise. So then they came out with the one that has USB-C power on there. So you have USB,
cool.
USB, micro, regular, and then USB Type C power throughput. The only problem with it is, which is not a huge problem, this particular model has a power throughput, but you can't get data reading the other way. So it's just for power. However, because there's the USB on there and the SD card slot, whatever. And then so this butts right up flush against the MacBook. I keep on saying MacBook Pro against the MacBook. And it's a really, really nice system. And it's color matched as well. So this is space gray. So it
how is that connector? How solid is that on there? Because
from what
obviously when you're gonna have all those ports full and it's just connected to one port, you're gonna have to be really careful not to bend it or
I thought about that, and here's the thing. This kind of thing is going to be used sparingly. I also bought I went to SF Bags, Waterfield Design Bags, and they're not just bags, but they sell all kinds of things in pouches and holders and so forth. And I got this one bag that is just meant for peripherals, charger cord, things like this, SD cards, whatever, that you're going to put in there. So I have this bag that's going to hold my MacBook and this thing with some other peripherals in it, in the bag itself. So when I need it, I'm going to plug it in. It stays up flush. There's not a lot of wiggle on it. And yeah, everybody did say that when you pull out, sometimes you have to be real careful. You have to kind of hold it steady while you pull out. But that being said, it's not going to be on the MacBook all the time, only when I need it. So I'm not too worried about it. But it's really, really nice. I just opened this for the first time now.
I'm amazed. Like that would actually really, that if I had known that existed, I might have actually bought my MacBook.
Yeah. And it has a can't see it, but it's like a pinhole indicator light right there. So when it's charging, that's on.
That's
and great. Thoughtfully, they put the logo on the bottom. So when this thing plugs in, you don't see the logo. So it's just nice and clean to go with the design. I mean, they really thought it through.
Very modest.
Yeah, so this is perfect. And it was $30-$40 on Amazon.
And it doesn't look like a dongle. I mean, when we hear Apple dongle, it's an ugly white, like plastic box with the cable out coming from it, and then you're like, oh no.
For $80.
For $80, there you go.
$80.
And it's white, and everybody knows like, oh, he's compensating his MacBook lust, with this little dongle. He's like, no problem, I got a dongle.
Yeah, and this is perfect. So
it's also perfect. Like, we always have this kind of Stockholm syndrome as well, like Windows people say, that we're trying to justify all those things they take from us. They're going like, yeah, but it's actually the effect of having one USB-C is, for me, trying to write a book, is really when I'm at the cafe or I'm somewhere transporting this machine, I'm like, okay, I'll just pop open the lid and start writing. There's no USB, there's no DVD drive, there's no nothing.
Done.
Kind of, yeah, and it keeps me focused on my work.
Isn't that a great I love the philosophy of the MacBook, mainly because of that. It's just kind of, it is what it is, We talked about gaming before. You got a new PlayStation 4, right?
That's right. And I never thought that I'd actually buy another gaming system. I have owned like the PS1 when I was in America even. I had the PS1, the PS2, and I played like all those old school 90s consoles, obviously like Sega Genesis, and with my brothers. And but I'm like, yeah, I'm an adult now. How can I justify? But yeah, kind of like my body, maybe a little bit.
12-year-old up here all the time. Right?
There you go. I'm gonna keep it that way. You can quote me on that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can I justify playing a video game for like an really immense amount of time? And I could be working out. I could be studying. I could be doing something. But the military taught me to be patient and just let the time go by. And if you can keep that in check and look at yourself and like, okay, now I have to study, I have to work out.
Yeah. If
you don't let it become an addiction like so many other things, it's fine. It's like a long movie. You can play it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's actually the new graphics, the new gen graphics actually got me to get it, because there's great characters, there's awesome game development, there's game design that's gorgeous, it's beautiful, immersive graphics, and very rewarding content. It's like a big, long movies with in-depth characters also, which weren't there before because the game sizes weren't that big, that you had dialogues and cutscenes bringing you in to the storytelling, right? That's what I'm in there for a lot, and some of the multiplayer aspects as well.
Are there any particular titles that you prefer?
Since I'm just getting into it again, I have been looking through all the things. There's Uncharted, which I liked. It's kind of like Indiana Jones with the cool lead main character. A lot of action, a lot of like discovering old relics and old tombs. It's an Indiana Jones based action storytelling kind of game. And there's I think no, not March 6th. That's another one. There's my girlfriend. So there's going to be a new one coming out in a month, and it's amazing. It's the fourth one. It's called The Thief's End. It's presumed to be the last one from Naughty Dog, but the graphics look amazing. That's one I'm looking forward to. A new Doom. I think you're probably familiar with the title.
Very.
Very, very, yeah. The new Doom trailer from E3. They presented it, I think, 2014 or 15. I think 14. They showed like this is gonna come in 2 years, guys, and the audience went nuts. I mean, the trailer is bombastic. Graphic is great. They kept all the old atmospheric things like the doors sliding shut and opening. Those sounds they kind of changed and made them more modern, but the core feel of the game is the same, which I think is going to make it gold. Another one would be The Division, which is going to be the next multiplayer online game.
Yeah, I heard about that one.
Yeah, and I'm going to be probably in that for way too long.
I got to tell you, I really envy you and all other gamers, really, because when I was a kid, I played endless amounts of Nintendo and went to the arcade and everything. So I considered myself as a kid as a gamer, but I'm one of that rare, I don't know, rare, but whatever percentage it is of people that any kind of first player games within 5-10 minutes, I am sick. I am totally nauseous and can't deal with it. And it's, I know there are games out there that aren't first player that you can play, but the best ones I think are in first player perspective or first person perspective. And I can't, even the Simpsons game, I played the, 6 years ago or something. And I sat there and played it. I was like, oh, it was really great. After about an hour, I was laid up for the next day. It was so nauseous. It was awful.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it stinks. But as a guy who has a wife and 4 kids, it's probably best that I'm not a gamer at this point in my life.
Someone's trying to tell you something.
Yeah, I have an addictive personality anyway, so
is keeping you from it.
Exactly.
But you know what? I coming from like an Apple enthusiast perspective, I thought it was really interesting since I got to know the hardware, right, of Apple and the Mac, iPhones, iPads. I opened some of them up and I got very, very familiar with the feel, the look, how things are attached, what it feels like. I was thinking that was very interesting to compare these two universes with each other. Like another big player on the technology market is Sony. Obviously, they're not integrated. The services are not the same as Apple's, but I was trying to compare how uniform that all is, how good their service is, the PlayStation Network, right? How is this PlayStation built? Is it a quirky little plastic thing? How is their other handhelds integrated? Can you combine them? Can you attach them to your PlayStation? All those things. I'm still not done with my decision making. Obviously, Apple is the master. Right. They're the master of hardware. They're the master, right? But Sony is no slouch when it comes to like optics, when it comes to building cameras, obviously, televisions. But it's another ecosystem. Apple's trying to connect all of their devices in one way or another, from your wrist to your ear, right, to your table. And Sony it's spread apart way too broadly from what all the things they do, television and they have 500 million different television. They have a lot of different cameras. So
that's true.
Just comparing those two, I thought was very, very interesting.
You mentioned the wrist. Do you have an Apple Watch?
I do not.
They're going to be coming out, I'm sure, this next announcement. What is it, March 15th or 18th? I think Apple has a new announcement coming out. And what do you think they're going to announce there? I mean, obviously, they're going to announce something with the watch. I don't think it's going to be the second gen, but probably I hear it's supposed to be just some bands and everything.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. It's just a couple of bands. And there was one more thing, but I can't get it top of my head right now. There's one other thing they were going to announce or change or whatever.
You mean with the watch specifically?
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. It was the bands and maybe a software or new. I know they're shopping for people who can do new watch faces.
Watch face, I think that
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 might
might
be it, but
be
I'm
it.
not sure. Yeah, but the second gen isn't coming out until later this year. So I have an Apple Watch here. I actually bought um, the first one I had was the black aluminum,
Hmm.
and then I had that for a little while, but I love the look of it, but I didn't like the fact that it was glass instead of sapphire, and it gets these little tiny scratches on there. But it was still good enough where before you could buy the Apple Watch in the store, right before, actually no, a couple weeks before, I decided to put it up on Craigslist for $500, which was $200 more than I bought it for. But demand and everything, maybe someone would buy it. So I put it up there and totally forgot about it, and I was just wearing the watch. And then the day that Apple started selling their watches in their store, a guy calls me up and he says, "Hey, do you still have that watch for sale?" And I thought, "Oh, yeah, I guess I do. I totally forgot about that." He said, "Could I come over and pick it up?" I said, "Yeah, it's 500 cash." He said, "Yeah, no problem." So he comes over, gives me 500 cash, takes the watch. I had the box, all the peripherals and stuff. It was in really decent condition. And I took that $500 that same day, added $100 of my own money, and then went and bought the stainless steel one right in the
Wow.
store. And I can tell you from having both that if I'm going to buy an Apple Watch, a lot of people have said and continue to say, well, you want to buy the lower end one because it's an entry level and there's going to be different versions coming out. And there's an argument for that. But I got to tell you, this sapphire glass on here, I have banged this thing up so many times. It doesn't have any scratches, any dings, nothing. Um, I'm looking forward to the second gen because it is a little thick. And there's a lot of great bands that you can buy on
Yeah.
Amazon. This one kind of matches the one Apple sells.
Hmm.
You really can't tell the difference. This was $30 on Amazon. $30 instead of $150.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, I want to sell this one soon enough because I know I'm going to want the second gen watch because I would like it to be a little bit thinner. Still, that being said, I love this thing for what it is. For me, it's just about the regular watch function, but also the notifications are great when you're in the Apple ecosystem, like you mentioned, having an ecosystem that you're part of. It really, really helps. But I can't remember the last time I hit the little button and went to an actual app and used an app. I just don't use them. So it's just notifications and a watch, and it looks cool and it's nice and all that stuff. But occasionally I take a call on there and everything. But I'm looking forward to it being more of an autonomous type of thing where it has a GPS in it. It doesn't depend on the phone for apps. It's a little bit thinner. So I think that's what the second or maybe third gen will offer. But
And I think the wish that everyone has for a portable device always is battery life,
yeah,
right?
but I got a tip for you. I got a tip. You know how everybody complains about battery life with the Apple Watch? Here's how you overcome that. Uh, it comes default with the heart monitor on. So every 10 minutes, it measures your heart rate. So I
Okay.
didn't know that. So the first few days that I had my Apple Watch, I had at the end of every day 15, 20%, which was okay. I turn that heart monitor off at the end of every day now. A long day, I put it on the first thing, use it all day, the end of the night, 50, 60% every single night.
Okay.
You know,
That's a lot.
you just have to
Yeah.
turn off the heart monitor, really. Everybody who buys one, I tell them that little tip, and they're like, oh, this is great. Um, Other rumor that I know you had mentioned before we got on was the iPhone 6 without the 5 millimeter headphone jack.
Yeah, that's what everyone was talking about when that news came out. There's actually a lot of like there's a lot of famous tech bloggers and whatnot
Mm-hmm.
actually saying there's some merit to these rumors
Mm-hmm.
because of patents that Apple is working on with other companies, and patents aren't that they send in to get them, I don't know, licensed or looked over by the FCC or whatever. They're not always. I mean, like 1% of those patents gets used on a
Right.
regular basis
Right.
in the next couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still something they're thinking about, and it's not something that is far fetched, right? They have always tried to create big new standards for the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I have an example, the floppy disks, right? They're like, get rid of floppy. It's just CDs now. and then they developed the USB standard together with Intel.
Mm-hmm.
They developed it with them. They didn't invent it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to be careful with the wording there. But they succeeded and failed, right? I'd say Thunderbolt is a failed attempt at um, trying to deliver a ubiquitous new technology for professionals that need a fast storage, right? But I think most of the professionals, they are very content with they're satisfied with the speed that USB 3 can deliver right now, right? And they're not going to jump to Thunderbolt anytime soon. So I think that's another. It's not bad, like it's good technology, but it wasn't widely adopted.
Yeah, there's not enough peripherals for it, and what there is too expensive.
There you go.
Yeah,
right. And
true.
Once it would have been adopted, it goes cheaper. We have third-party manufacturers making cheap, well, not just pricingly cheap things, not bad,
Sure.
right? And then we have a widespread new standard. And USB-C is going to be this. And I think Apple is going to jump on the USB-C train with all they have.
You mean instead of on their MacBooks, but what about the iPhone? I mean, that's probably going to stay Lightning, because Lightning can do data, backward and forward, and power and everything.
But I mean, having the Lightning as their new, we have one port for everything.
Right.
Is the 5mm jack? I mean, it's the most ubiquitous thing. I mean, like from a plug-in wise, I think it actually rivals USB. Like, obviously, USB 2.0 was huge. 3.0 is also backwards compatible, right? So that's USB is great.
Well,
5mm jack for musicians like such as you and I. There's just certain connectors that you can't. I mean, that would be a big drawback.
Well, it would. I guess it really depends. I mean, first and foremost, they have to figure this out, because I mean, I assume, because I think there's a patent out also where they're going to do call them AirPods instead of earpods. So they're going to have it so it'll just kind of connect here, and it'll be a Bluetooth type of thing. And I'm fine with that, actually. I hope they come out with the same exact design, because for me, these things fit perfectly, so much so that I forget that I have them in sometimes. I have a business, and so I have them in most of the time to take calls and everything, and I forget to have them in there. The other day, I bought, not the other day, a couple of weeks ago, I bought these were touted quite a bit by other technologists, the Jaybird 2 something. Yeah. They're really, really nice, but these in-ear designs, they don't fit in my ears really well. And I mean, it's a really nice system. It's all in one, but they don't fit in my ears well at all. So I can't use them. So I thought, well, I hope they do come out with Bluetooth AirPods, because I'm fine with the quality of these. I mean, like you mentioned, we're both musicians, and I'm kind of an audiophile, but I think most people can't tell the difference, and these are fine for listening to music or podcasts, especially, which I listen to a lot of. So, I mean, if they come out with a version for that with Bluetooth, I think that'll be fine. What do you think about the wireless charging? Have you heard about that?
That's another topic that I thought is very groundbreaking. It would be groundbreaking if they released it. So I've heard, I read on Bloomberg that they might be able to get it to the consumer as early as 2017. So it's going to be this near field magnetic resonance charging, right? Right.
Right. Maybe I'm getting too old. I mean, they're not talking about charging over a Wi-Fi signal, right? I mean, this is talking about close to your computer.
I've read papers, scientific papers on wireless energy, wireless electricity.
Okay.
As far back as 2005.
Wow.
Then saying it's not, if you throw enough money at it, basically, you can get it to work. Safety is an issue, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But this is a whole different type of technology than just throwing electricity from one connector to the receiving end, and just throwing it through the air, and whatever is in between is going to get right the radon treatment.
Yeah,
Um,
right. And this isn't a thing where like you lay it on a pad and it's through magnetic connection. This is just like
it's going to be
this is
up
over
to a
the
meter
air.
away. It's going to be a meter away. That's
That's
like
crazy.
what is it, like a yard? I mean, let's just say it's a yard, right? There's some inches off there
From
from
the
a
computer
yard to
or
a meter.
from a module plugged into the wall, or what is it getting the power from? What's the source is my question.
There is, I think there's going to be a pod. There's some sort of, I mean, there has to be a technology. There has
That's
to be some hub
that's nuts.
emitting these electromagnetic frequencies or this field. And getting in depth, most of it I didn't understand. Obviously, but it's going to be electromagnetic. It might be something like a CT,
Yeah. If they
right? Like a CT scan.
if they have an iPhone 7, I mean, when they announce the iPhone 7, if it has something like that where that battery stays charged, that's just going to be nuts. Because that way, I mean, even I wonder how that would work. I mean, maybe like even retail spots, if you're sitting in a Starbucks or whatever, and they say, hey, come on in, we have near field charging available, and just sit there and your phone charges up while you have your coffee or something. That's just, I don't know, boy.
I think that is the future. I mean, it sounds crazy to us, but if you
That's
ask
good with
people
me.
20 years ago what we're doing right now,
Yeah, everybody be staring at little black rectangles.
I'm
uh,
way more naive right now when it comes to future products or future technologies.
yeah,
As you said, just sitting there, everything is going to be wireless. I think there's really no doubt.
it's an interesting time to be an adult. It's an exciting time to be a kid. I mean, by the time my kids are grown and my age, I can't even imagine what's going to be out there. Um, Speaking of Bluetooth, I just bought this the other day.
That is cool.
Isn't that cool? Have you seen one of these things? It's
I have not.
it's based on the original Nintendo controller, which used to be square. This one's
Yeah.
round, and it has some extra buttons like a PlayStation controller. It also has the I don't know if you can see those. It has the little nubs
Hmm.
that you can do, and a D-pad on there as well. When you turn it on, it lights up and everything.
Oh, that's cool.
So it tells you. It's actually trying to connect with my computer right now. I haven't messed around with it enough to really get it working, but you can. This is a Bluetooth controller that you get working with your iPad, with your Mac, with your Android, with any computer, with anything. So anything that accepts that kind of controller, you can sit there and play a little bit. So,
Sweet.
like I said, I'm not a gamer, but I'm a real wannabe. So plus it was Nintendo, so it was $30, and this is called the I forget what it's called, the 8-bit, I think, the 8-bit do. It's called. So it's pretty cool. Um, Other announcements coming up. New MacBook Pros. They're going to have the Skylake also
Hmm.
processor, which from what I hear, that's going to really put the battery life through the roof. Also, it's more
That's
of
what
a
I'm looking for. Yeah, definitely.
that would be really nice to have because right now I think the top of the line battery is the latest MacBook Air, which gets 13, 14 hours of battery, which is crazy. So even that with a Skylake, I mean, that's now we're really talking literally all day, probably in the 16, 17 hour, which is nuts. But that'll be great to have some really efficient MacBook Pros like that. Of course, I'm going to MacBook, so what do I care?
Yeah, I'm still rocking a mid 2012 13-inch MacBook Pro, and I mean,
That's
there's
no
one.
slouch. It's a great
No,
machine. Yeah.
no, but for my necessities, it's a little too much on one hand and too little on the other.
Mm,
We don't have to talk about the screen resolution, 1280 by 800.
sure.
That's like Stone Age. What technology is concerned, like MacBooks, that's not acceptable
Yeah.
for my eyes anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and the i7 was just, I thought, yeah, great i7. It's the bad choice for my purposes because, as I said, the fan, um, it does rear up more because there's still just one fan and it has to cool an i7 instead of an i5.
Mm,
So the i5 was then 2.2
hmm.
gigahertz, I think,
Yeah.
and this one is now like 2.8. So yeah, it has to keep it cool with one small fan, which is the same size as the entry level. MacBook Pro.
Yeah, I really, man, when I was thinking about getting this MacBook, I was really, really, really going back and forth about either getting a MacBook Pro 13 again, because that's a really nice, slim, portable machine. But I know that they're going to get a Skylake, and just that form factor of the MacBook, it makes the MacBook Air look huge. It makes it
Yeah,
look
it's perfect.
gigantic.
It's perfect. I love it. That's why I was set on writing a book,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, what's your
Still
book about,
am.
by the way? Is it? If I may,
Uh,
you don't have to reveal it here
no,
if
no,
you don't
no,
want to.
no, no. It's gonna be a self kind of reflecting science fiction story,
Oh,
which
cool.
sounds weird,
Hmm.
with some twist and like plot things and
Is it a
a
fictional type of thing?
fictional type of thing.
Oh, awesome. You have to let us know
Just
when it comes out.
just writing it as like as I move along the
Hmm.
months, I'm just writing and writing and trying to think of new stuff. And I thought, since I'm going to be traveling a lot and I want to write a lot, I want to
MacBook.
make myself write more,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That would be the input for me is it's a small, right? It doesn't have a lot of things distracting me. It has everything you need. Um, the screen is perfect since that's the thing you're going to be looking at most, and your eyes are very sensitive organs,
Yeah,
and the screen is absolutely beautiful,
it
right?
is. It's an
Form
amazing
factor is
screen.
perfect because it's big enough and it's small enough not to get like too big for your bags or whatever.
Have you played around with the keyboard?
Yeah, I did. I'm split on it. I think
Yeah.
I could get used to it very well,
Uh-huh.
but going from the magnificent, perfect MacBook Pro keyboard,
Yep.
it's it's just something you're going to have to get to used to,
It's a
and you will.
compromise. My only wish with that, I mean, I love the new butterfly mechanism. So it goes straight down rather than wobbling because when you type on that for a while and you go back to a MacBook Pro, the MacBook Pro actually feels a little bit wobbly.
Mhm.
It's not distracting or anything, but I wish they would have gotten just a little bit more throw, a little bit more depth, and that would have been perfect, like just
That
right,
yeah,
because they're
because
wider and bigger, but
it feels like a type cover,
yeah,
almost
yeah,
ish,
and it's like
ish.
typing. It feel if the feel of it is like typing on an iPad, but with a click. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? If it's
yeah,
because it's just right there. I mean, as soon as you hit it, boom, you're down. But you can get really fast on there because I spent way too much time in an Apple store. So are you going to buy this? No, no, no. Just testing
yeah.
it out. But and I did test one the other day. I opened a whole lot of apps at the same time. Opened up Safari. Oh, one tip: if you end up getting a MacBook, what I have heard, it if you use Apple apps and Safari on there, battery will last the advertised 8-9 hours. If you use Chrome on there, 5-6 hours tops. It kills the battery. Chrome does,
Wow.
kills it because it's really meant for things that are optimized for the MacBook or the Intel Core M processor, which Chrome is not. So yeah, it kills your battery. So there are some people. It's interesting because you go online and on YouTube and you see different people reviewing the MacBook, and some will say, "Oh, the battery life is great." Some will say, "Oh, it's really not that great. It's not that powerful." And as they're doing their review, I always look at the apps that they have along the dock, and inevitably the ones that have bad battery, Chrome is front and center, and that's what they're using, and that's why. So you really got to know what you're looking for. But yeah, so you got to use Safari on there.
And it's a fanless design, dude.
Fanless,
Dude, what is that?
totally silent,
You
metal
talk
and
about that.
I mean,
I mean, iPad is fanless still blows my mind, right? Because you can have some very, very demanding games on it, right? There's some very visually impressive games,
mm-hmm.
and without a fan, it gets warm. But I mean, you always needed a fan for a computer. Are you kidding me?
I know,
I had fans this size
yeah,
on my gaming rig, right? And like all my laptops, like from 2005, is just like big fans, loud fans, and then MacBook Pro fans, right?
yeah.
From if you have the i5 or the one before, what was that? The Intel dual
Core two
Core
Duo,
2
yeah,
Duo. There you go.
yeah,
They didn't. I mean, if you had Safari, you were doing some Flash things. It
yeah,
used to pop on once, and in the library, like in college, I'm always like, okay, Like this is quiet. I can work like this
Yeah.
and not annoy people with my loud fan.
And I think that's one of the other things that Skylake processors, because it's going to be more efficient, they can at least either shrink the fans or eventually get rid of the fans. But can you imagine a MacBook Pro as thin as a MacBook? I mean, that's just going to be nuts because that's what they're going for. Even Steve Jobs said on stage, he said, not with the MacBook, but with the MacBook Air, he said, this is the future of computing. Take that further, the MacBook is going to be the future of computing. And they even said that on stage when they introduced the MacBook. And I thought, wow, that's going to be crazy to see things that robust, that strong, that well put together, and that thin is just nuts. And so as Intel increases their processors, and I heard that maybe Apple's going to start making their own chips. I mean, I know they do for the iOS, but
Yeah.
putting them inside of a MacBook, I mean, that's going to be a game changer if they can do that because everything will be optimized for it, you know. But lastly, because we're getting a little long on time, I want to keep this around an hour. I want to get your thoughts on a follow-up with the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a logical progression
Mm-hmm.
from what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are going to try to cater to a professional market, such as designing artists, painters.
Do you think they did a good job so far with the iPad Pro, with what it is right now? Do you think it deserves the Pro moniker? I have an opinion, but I'm just curious of your opinion.
That's a really good question. Does a bigger iPad make it Pro? Because that's all it is.
Pretty much.
There's no other technology other than a big glass screen, which is nice. You have it's not called Force Touch.
Yeah.
It's still called Force Touch in the MacBooks though.
There's a 3D touch, but that's not
3D.
That's not in there either. That doesn't have 3D touch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they have to save something for Generation 2 and Generation 3 to add in.
Yeah, but I think the philosophy that Apple has adopted of having their iOS devices having iOS and their Mac devices having OS 10 holds perfectly until you get to the Pro point. And the problem is that when you compare the iPad Pro to something like the Surface, in just about every way, I can say, well, I'd choose the iPad Pro. I choose the iPad Pro because of the ecosystem, because of this, because of that, because of performance, and so on and so forth. But the thing that the Surface has that trumps the iPad Pro is it has, like it or not, a full Windows desktop operating system on there. If there was a way to have the iPad Pro exactly what it is today, even with the type cover, which I don't really like because it's too finagly and whatever. But if you could just swipe and all of a sudden you had OS 10 on that iPad Pro, that's an iPad Pro. That right there, and I know they don't want to do it philosophy-wise, but that right there would be a game changer. Now, all of a sudden, everybody would be able to get their same work done on like a MacBook as they could on an iOS, and that is an iPad Pro. Right now, to me, it's a big iPad with a pen and better speakers. I mean, how's that Pro?
I think it seeing as time progresses from 2010 when the iPad came out, people were saying the iPad was just a big iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't wrong.
Right. It was not it's not bad, but
and it's not a bad thing.
Right.
And it did introduce a whole lot of new ideas and concepts. People were going to use it in businesses and whatever all over the world, in schools, just because of the big screen, because the iPhone had so much to offer from a media point of view. You could just pass around a device and interact with it in a very, well, not professional, but in a very profound way. You could change the shape, show people something, graphs and whatever. And that's what the iPad gave those people who needed to use it. I think the iPad Pro is going to further advance into the next category, whatever is going to be the new iPad replacement. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it's exactly the same. It's going to be a big iPad what does that mean for people using it? How is our like our culture of consume? How's it gonna change with a bigger screen? They might be put it like I think it's gonna be even though it's a mobile device. I think we will see a lot of these iPad Pros being cemented in somewhere where you can just interact with it, like the window Microsoft had that the tables, the big tables that
Yeah,
they
yeah. They were actually called the Surface tables. They were called
right
Surface
exactly.
anything. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think they're going to be used a lot for that,
Mhm.
and maybe some rich people are going to buy them just because bigger is better,
I know I
right?
mean, I have my iPad Air 2, and I think a lot of people are hoping that they allow the iPad Air 3 when it comes out is to have four speakers like the iPad Pro,
Right.
the ability to do pen input on there, or sorry, pencil input. I don't know why I call it pencil. Pencil input on there, and so but if they do that, that's going to even further cannibalize any sales for the iPad Pro. It was very strange for me. I mean, I'm an Apple guy, but I'm also someone who, if I have technology, I want to be using it, and if I'm not, I'm going to sell it, um, even if it's a consumption device. And I looked at the iPad Pro, and I had no desire other than curiosity to have it, because it just does nothing for me. Now, yeah, again, I'm a photographer, and I could hand it over to somebody and say, well, yeah, here's my work and everything, and that's great. But an iPad Air 2 is almost the perfect iPad for that type of thing. But even so, it's a consumption device. I don't do any creative work on it other than putting my photographs on there. And then otherwise, it's video. I have Netflix or whatever running while I'm doing work on my iMac or my MacBook Pro. It's just I don't know if it
And
what go ahead.
we've talked about iOS and how great it is,
Hmm.
but I think it's not fluid enough to have it be a rival to the Surface tablets from Windows because they have been selling very well.
Hmm.
Getting customer care is also up there in the 90s, so it's a very good device. It's a very good device for people who need it because of the very nice type cover they have.
The hardware is beautiful. I have a friend
Yeah,
that I just saw. He has a Surface 4. Boy, has that product matured. It is really, really nice. The first one, the second one was okay. The third one got close. The fourth one, I mean, it nails it. That type cover is really nice. The magnesium metal on there is fantastic. The kickstand is really great. I wish iPad Pro would have done. I mean, they don't want to have a kickstand because Steve Jobs would roll over in his grave. But if it had something like that, that would be great. But it's just, I don't know. And that type cover that the iPad Pro has just really, really misses the mark. I haven't seen anybody who hasn't complained about that a little bit, at
and it
least.
might be. I mean, when we talked the last time, Apple was front runner, pioneer in lots of areas. Now other the others have just caught up a bit,
Which is great for us. It
which is
makes,
super.
yep.
But this is a transitional phase right now where Apple, I think they're trying to build things fast
Hmm.
to just get some buyers to get the iPad Pro with the keyboard, with the pencil, instead of other products.
Yeah.
And they're still in development, obviously. And then they're gonna figure out how they're gonna place a netbook replacement Surface tablet slash mini computer into
Mm.
their repertoire of devices.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out their official lineup
Hmm.
as we speak. And I think the iPad Pro with the keyboard device was just them trying to throw it out there.
Yeah. It's like to
It,
say me too, kind of.
it's kind of like the you probably saw the iPhone battery case that Apple made with that bump. It's also on the what was that, right?
Hideous is what it was.
I don't know which board of directors let that thing pass through, but I think it's one of those things where Apple just threw it on. They're like, yeah, our brand is still
Yeah.
intact,
Yeah.
right?
And it's,
People still love the shiny Apple. We're going to throw it out. Some
yeah.
people will buy it. We'll get some money. There's going to be some backlash on the internet. Or maybe they were just naive and thought it's going to be great. I
And
don't
it's
know.
actually that little case. I almost bought one, but I mean, the price point is a little off when you compare it to a Mophie. It does have some nice features where you can see how much battery life is left in there on your iPhone screen, which is great. But the indicator light is on the inside. It's got that silicone material, which is okay, but I don't know.
But
And it doesn't do 100% charge from zero. It only does 80. Whereas Mophie will do like 1.5 times that charge for
yeah,
$80.
yeah.
It's just not worth it. But
There's too much on the market already since 2008
this is
is
a
when the first
long
one.
time coming, and they did
Yeah,
not hit a home run at all.
I
Uh,
don't understand them doing this because there's no shortage of companies doing really great work
yeah.
with these things.
Um, Next time we talk, I want to get into, because I don't, we're running short on time, but
Yeah,
next
sure.
time we talk, I want to get into iOS and design also, since Johnny Ives took over on iOS. I have a lot to say about lot to like, but a lot to complain about also. And also, have you ever listened to John Gruber's podcast, The Talk Show?
I've listened to John Gruber on other Apple
Okay.
and tech podcasts.
He has
Uh,
he has a website called Daring Fireball,
right.
and that has a talk show called The Talk Show, and you can subscribe to that. The reason I'm bringing it up is because John Gruber, he's one of the most well-versed in the know guys about Apple and their products, among other technology. And the most recent one he did, the podcast, the latest one he just put out, uh, is an interview with, it's him talking for an hour to Eddie Q and to
Wow.
Craig Federighi,
What?
and he asks them some tough questions about design, about iTunes, about Apple Music, and they're not as apologetic as you'd think they would be. I don't mean I mean they're not justifying. They're not saying, well, we're Apple this and yeah, this is our. They actually know. They own up to the problems that they have, and they answer some hard questions. They let people know what they're trying to do, what they're lacking on, what they're trying to do better on, and how they see things. It's a really, really great hour-long interview. I highly
I'm
recommend everybody
I'm
listen to
going
that.
to I'm going to get on that right now
Yeah, it's really,
after
really good.
after our,
Yeah, John has some good access to Apple people. The last one he did like that was a sit down with Phil Schiller, which was also a good one. You can actually go back and I think about it almost a year ago he did a conversation with him. But anyway, hey man, this is a good first start for Tech Out Loud. uh, we're going to be. You can find Tech Out Loud on Twitter. On YouTube. We have a channel up there. We're going to try to put everything up. You can go to our website, techoutloud.com. And we're going to be doing this hopefully as a weekly podcast, a video podcast also. So we're going to do audio and video each week, hopefully Friday or Saturday each week. As the wedding season kicks up and I start shooting weddings on Saturday, I'm not going to be available too many Saturdays, but we're still going to try to shoot for Saturdays and Fridays when we can't do a Saturday. So thanks so much, Roman.
it's been a blast.
Oh, and one more thing. I want to try to get Zen on future podcasts.
No.
Yeah, I reached out to he's every 3 months he'll put a video out on YouTube, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And he's doing unboxings with his giant cleaver. I don't know if you've ever seen him do
Oh
this. This
yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, who may be listening or seeing this, Zen is the person we did the podcast with before. What is his name? I
I
always called
forgot.
him Zen. I can't remember his
Yeah.
name. I can't remember his name. Anyway, I'll reach out to him and let him know that, like, if you just not to do I know he's busy, but if he wants to do like a guest podcast type of thing, that'd be great. You know what I mean? So
That'd be perfect.
I'll invite him out there to do a little reunion for us. Maybe the next time. We'll see. All right. Well, take care. It was good seeing you again, and we'll do this again next week.
See you soon, buddy.
Take care, man. Bye bye.
Bye bye.